Assalamu alaikum, welcome back friends to the channel. In this video, we are going to continue our series about Kotlin for beginners. In today's video, we are going to learn about collections. We will start learning about the list collection. So let's get started. So mainly in Kotlin, we have three main types of collection. We have lists, we have sets, and we have maps. And each one of these collection have two types or two separate interface, mutable one and read-only one. So we are going to start with the list. The main characteristic of list in Java or Kotlin is that lists are ordered collection. So you can access the element by their indices. So if, for example, you can get the index of 1 or 0 and you can get an element based on that index. The second characteristic is that an element can occur many times inside lists compared to sets. For example, we'll learn about sets in the next videos, hopefully. And now for lists, we have two main types. We have mutable type and we have read-only type. We'll start with the first one. So if you want to define a list of integers, for example, well, you can create a val here and call it list of ints like that. And here you can have many ways to create a list. The first way to create a list is just to use the list of. Now, if we don't specify the type here, the type of the list, you can use here this generic. We will learn about generics in the future. Now here I will put list of int. And I will put inside that list 1 and 2 and 5. Now, this type will get immediately grayed out because it inferred the type here. So we can delete it. This list by default is a read-only list, okay? You can't add things to that list, okay? So you can access the element of that list. As I told you, you can access them with the get, like that. So you can access with the index. Lists are zero-based index, okay? So you can, the first element is the 0, the second element is the 1, and so on. We can have this get something like that. So we can use those squared brackets. This is an implementation of the get overloaded operator. Okay, if you click here, that you will see it is implementing the get. Now, if you want to change the first element here, if you try to do something like that, this will be a problem because this list, if you search for this list, it will return just a list. All right, it's not a mutable list. On the contrary, if you want to create a list that can be changed, for example, if you want to add something new to that list, usually in Java, we have this method called add. If you want to add something so we can extend that list, just type 1 here, add 1. But this list interface is immutable, as I said. So if you want to make it mutable, you just have to type mutable list of, and basically you can delete that. And as you can see, mutable list of, as you can see here, it will return a mutable list. This is an interface, okay? This is an interface. So basically each collection, the set and the maps and here the list will have two types, mutable type and read-only type. All right, you can do the following also. You can see the first one and change it into 2. Okay, so this will do the replacement. So this is how you can access the elements and how you can replace them if you want mutable. So the thing is to differentiate between this mutable and read-only types. Okay, sometimes I see people make mistake about this val. So this val and var has nothing to do with this mutable or not. Because if you change it to val, as we can see here, it is val, and we still can change the content of that list. But we can't change completely the list. We can't do something like that, of course, because it is immutable, right? We can't reassign list of ints. On the other hand, if we do var, we can assign. So that's different. You can do many things to a list of int. As I said, you can replace things, you can remove things because it is immutable. Okay, you can remove things here. You remove the first, you can shuffle them, or there is many operations here. You can check and see how it works. We won't be covering all those methods, but based on the implementation of the list you want, it is mutable or read only, you will have many other methods. Okay, so this is how you can create lists. You can also create specific implementation of lists. Now, if you go here to mutable list of, click on it, it will return an array list. Okay, if you are familiar with Java, you are familiar with that array list. So it creates an array list directly. Okay, you can still create an array list here. You can create an array list directly here like that, and you can work with it. Well, you have to specify the type. You can specify the type from here. If you want it to be a list like that, you say int, and that will be a list of int. And remember, you can't add things to that. But if you want it to be a mutable list of, okay, you still can add things here. Okay, you can add 1, add 2, and everything. Okay, so if you want an array list, if you want a linked list, for example, you can still get it with a mutable interface or a mutable interface like that. Okay, so both can work. So this is how you can specify the implementation type of that list. But remember, you have two types to define here, mutable and immutable. All right, mutable and read-only. I always prefer immutable type. You can use mutable type, of course, but only if you have valid reason. You can do something else also, just to show you how this is important. You can create a mutable list of here, and that will be cast into a list, so you still can't add because we are working with this type. Okay, so always make sure either to delete that to let the compiler infer it alone. Okay, so we'll have to type int. Otherwise, just specify the type here. Now, sometimes we want our collections to have nullable types. All right, so you can define nullable types. Well, the first thing to notice, there is difference between this and this. So these are not the same. This one means that this list, complete the list at all, can be null. Okay, so if we put here null, it will work, of course, but this list is not. So we have to do always safe check like that, something like that, or something like that in order to work with it. That's the first thing. But if you want the elements inside this collection to be null or not, you can define it as a follow. Let me go back. I will delete that and put it here. This means I can add null here. Okay, I can add null to the list. Okay. It doesn't have any sense, I know, but this is a possibility you can work with strings and so on. Let's say I delete that. That way you will have an error. So the compiler will reinforce that null safety, okay, because it is not null. So this way, this type, the internal type of that list is null. All right, we can use this notation in lists, in sets, and also in maps. All right, so this is basically how you can work with list. The final thing I want to show you is that you can convert a list into an array by using two-typed array. This is the first thing. Okay, so this will return an array. And sometimes when you have a list, let's say I'm having that list and you can add things to it, you can convert it into a mutable list. Okay, so you can work with that instance. Let's say I define a mutable version for that. Okay, and I can add things into that second list. Okay, I can add things here. Okay, so that's the difference between mutable and immutable, and how to convert to array and to mutable list. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next videos. Salam alaikum.